When somebody says to you, salesman, what do you think? You think fast talker, very extroverted, answer for every question, won't take no for an answer. Basically somebody like Treshan Pereira, right?
Yeah.
Somebody, a real big talker. Well, that's a common view, but it's actually wrong. That's not what it takes to be a great salesman. What it takes to be a great salesman is to listen and to ask questions. A marketing consultant I met once told me about a client of his. It was a group of, it was a partnership of accountants. And they were young accountants who'd gone out on their own, started up their own practice. To save money, they rented an office on the outskirts of town. And business went well. They had a lot of people coming to them. They said, we're so successful, we shouldn't be here on the outskirts of town. We need to be on the high street. And they moved to the high street. And what happened? Their business went in the toilet. And that was when they engaged my friend to sort things out for them. And he went around and talked to their former clients to see why they had come and why they had left. And what did he find out? Well, when they were out of town, they had parking. That was the whole story of their success. They had parking. It wasn't that they knew the tax code inside out. It wasn't that they're bullshitty, charming personalities like Treshan Pereira. They had parking. Moved to the high street, no parking. Clients left. So sometimes it's deflating, but you still need to listen to your customers. Speaking of listening to their customers, Harley Davidson did a survey. They wanted to find out what was the second choice. They went around to people who bought Harleys and said, if you hadn't bought the Harley, what were you going to buy? And what do you think it was? BMW? Who thinks it was BMW? Ducati? Yamaha? Who thinks it was Yamaha? It wasn't any of them. Yamaha? Yamaha man here. Wasn't any of them. It was a conservatory. So you need to listen to your customer. And you also need to know what you are selling to your customer. So, what does Harley sell? Does Harley sell motorcycles? David Marks, you think they sell motorcycles?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? He's broken the code, but he doesn't know the answer.
They sell the lifestyle.
Harley Davidson sells freedom! And Budweiser. Does Budweiser sell beer? No, you're quick learners here. What does Budweiser sell?
Coolness?
No, not quite, not quite, not quite. Friendship. And Revlon. What does Revlon sell?
Beauty.
Revlon sells hope. And this is an interesting one because most anybody can sell hope. I mean, Toastmasters sells hope. Right? The hope that you can become a better speaker, the hope that that will get you a promotion, whatever. Match.com sells hope. David Marks sells hope. The hope that your business will not go bust. So, lots of people can sell hope. But why do people buy? People buy to avoid pain. Pain now, pain in the future. It's all about avoiding pain. And as a salesman, you don't want them to avoid the pain because the pain is what makes them buy. They buy when the pain of not acting becomes greater than the pain of acting. The pain of rolling down the road in that old Rover becomes greater than the pain of shelling out for a new Mercedes. So you need to make them feel their pain. So how can you make them feel their pain? Well, a long time ago in a faraway place, well, it was a long time ago, 45 years ago, but it wasn't actually a faraway place. I think it was actually Nottingham. There was a sales manager at Rank Xerox who believed that all of his best salesmen were using the same kind of clothes. And he wanted to force feed this clothes to the rest of his sales force. He wanted all of you to use the same clothes. But to do that, he wanted some evidence, not just his instinct, but he wanted some evidence. And he hired a newly minted PhD psychologist named Neil Rackham to do some field work for him and prove that this clothes was it. This was the magic of selling Xerox machines. So Rackham went out and did his field work. Now the important thing about Rackham is he didn't invent anything about selling. He wasn't a salesman and he didn't invent anything about selling. All he did was develop a methodology for relating the behaviors of salesmen to their results. And he did his field work and he analyzed what he was seeing. He came back to the sales manager and said, I have some good news and some bad news for you. The good news is I know what it is that your best salesmen are doing differently. The bad news is it's not what you think. Not only does your favorite clothes not make any difference, my research says that the whole concept of closing is counterproductive. The whole concept of closing just alienates your customers. So you just need to forget closing and focus on what your best salesmen really are doing, which is asking questions. But not just any questions, but certain kinds of questions in a certain order. Now, you can get the whole argument if you buy Neil Rackham's book, but I'll give you the short version of it right now. He described these questions with an acronym, SPIN, which stood for situation, problem, implication, need. So what are these questions? Situation. That's fairly simple. As you go in and you ask the purchasing manager what's going on, how things are. And problem. You're there to solve a problem. You're not there to push something he doesn't need down his throat. You're there to solve a problem. So problem questions are asking him about what the problem is. That's just getting you started, because where you really make your money is with the implication and need questions. So implication is the question that's really about making them feel their pain. It's saying, Vladimir Vladimirovich, if these economic sanctions go on, what's that going to mean for political stability in Russia? And what's that going to mean for your tenure in office? And what's that going to mean for the likelihood that you're going to be hanging from a lamppost? Or to David Marks, if you go on working 150 hours a week, what's that going to do to your marriage?
I'm sold.
But this isn't enough to make, one of the interesting things Rackham found, this wasn't enough to make the sale. Making people feel the pain, getting them all down, oh my God, I can just feel it, and I feel it, wasn't what didn't get them to take action. He said you have to turn that around and give them something positive. So positive is the need question that will bring them to signing the check, signing the purchase order, pulling out the credit card. This is a fairly simple structure. If we can do something about that, would you be interested? If we could, if I could show you how to run your business on 40 hours a week, would that be interesting? What would that mean for you? What would that do for you? If I could show you how to double your sales, what would that do for you? That is where you get, you've created the urge to buy, made them feel their pain, but to actually get them to buy, you have to turn that around and make them feel good about something. Give them hope. Hope that there is freedom. Hope that there is friendship if they buy your beer. Hope that there is freedom if they buy your motorcycle. Hope that there will be self-esteem if they buy a Mercedes. So, to demonstrate this, there was another sales trainer. This isn't my own store. A couple more. When you're using these questions, you can't just jump in and say, well, what's wrong here? What's going wrong in this business? I know there's something wrong in this business. There has to be something wrong in this business. Tell me about it. The first thing you have to do is you have to ratify their successes. You have to get them to talk about what's good, because you can only ask questions when you have permission to ask that kind of question. And the biggest, in the whole progression of situation, problem, implication, need, the biggest point where you need to get permission is when you go from talking about the situation to asking them questions about problems. Because everybody will sit there and talk to you all day about what's good in their business. But to get them to open up and talk to you about something that's wrong requires that credibility and respect, and that they are willing to open up and entertain those questions. So it's essential that you not move from the situation to the problem questions until you have a green light to do so. If you run a red light, you're going to crash. And you just build up resistance. You may lose the prospect entirely. You will certainly have to go back and start the situation questions again until you get that. But the way you get there is by getting them to talk about what's good and the success that they've had. Then they will let you ask those questions. Now, the best salesmen do not ask a lot of situation and problem questions, actually, because they've done their homework. They go in knowing what the situation is, knowing where the bodies are buried, so they can get to them quickly. You don't go into Falve and say, oh, what's going on? You go in and say, so you've got a problem with your emission controls. What's that going to mean for you? So now, just run through an example of how this works. There was another sales trainer. He traveled a lot. He wore contact lenses. He traveled a lot. He did a lot of presentations in air-conditioned conference rooms, spent a lot of time on airplanes, and his contact lenses dry out and become painful. So while he was recuperating from one of these trips, he thought he'd look into laser surgery. So he could get rid of the contacts altogether. He's going to have laser surgery. He made an appointment with an ophthalmologist who offered laser surgery, went in, there there was a nurse who played him some videos. One of the videos they talked about how, well, yes, he possibly could be blinded by this surgery. So when he actually talked to the ophthalmologist says, okay, so you've seen the pitch. Do you have any questions? He said, just one question. Can this really make you go blind? And he said, well, it's never happened to me, and it's very rare, but in some exceptional and very rare cases, yes, it can happen. So are you interested? He said, no thanks. Let me out of here. He runs out of the office, runs into reception. The receptionist is saying, oh, we could fit you in. No, I don't want it. I'm going. So he went on another trip, though. And again, his contact lenses dried out, and his eyes hurt, and he came home, he thought about the laser surgery again, and he went to talk to a different ophthalmologist. And this ophthalmologist said, when he met the ophthalmologist again, said, so, you travel a lot. You wear contacts. What happens with your contacts when you travel? Well, they dry out and my eyes hurt. Oh, they dry out, your eyes hurt. And what does that mean when you're doing one of your presentations and your eyes are hurting? What does that mean for you? And if you go on this, and when are you going again? You're leaving on Thursday, and if you go on this trip, what do you think is going to happen to your contact lenses? And what's that going to feel like? And what's it going to feel like making your presentations with your eyes feeling that way? How does that affect how you relate to your audience? And so you're leaving on Thursday. Well, I think we could fit you in on Tuesday. If we could fit you in, would you be interested? And he's going through this, and the sales coach realizes he's got my stuff. He's doing my thing back to me. He's making me feel my pain. But it was too late. He was already hooked. He was already feeling his pain and rubbing his eyes. And when the ophthalmologist said, if we could do something, if we could fit you in, would you be interested? He's almost screaming in agony, and he goes, yes, let me out of this! And so, if an ophthalmologist can do it, so can you. Anybody can do this. It's a simple series of questions. You just have to be patient. Well, first you have to do your homework so that you don't waste your prospect's time. Be patient, wait for the red light, and move on to the next set of questions. And before you know it, he's going to be there rubbing his eyes and going, let me out of here!